Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of Conscious Business Connections, brought to you by the New York City chapter of Conscious Capitalism. My name is Bob Caporale, and I'm joined today by John Lema, the CEO of Better Spaces, located in New York City. John, welcome to the show.
Hi, how are you, Bob?
Great, great. Well, John, as you know, conscious capitalism is a philosophy that businesses should exist to help elevate humanity. And if they do that, then profit should be the result. And they can do that in any number of different ways, whether it's the products and services that they supply, or whether it's the culture that they create in their company and the way they treat their employees, their customers, their suppliers, and so forth. So that's kind of what we want to talk about today, is how Better Spaces helps to do that so that others can learn from that as well. Before we get into all that, why don't you tell us a little bit about Better Spaces, a little bit about the company, what you do, and so forth.
So Better Spaces was founded on this idea that employees were essentially, in the last couple of years, employees have been bringing all their work home, and there was no way for them to escape. And so we wanted to kind of bring this idea of home back into the workplace. How do you engage with employees? How do you engage with tenants inside of a building to make sure that they have the things that they need for better productivity, to be happier, to be able to be more fulfilled? It could be anything from physical well-being, nutritional well-being, but really our goal is how do we help employees have a better day? And
Right.
that was the founding purpose of the business.
Got it. And so how exactly do you go about doing that? Because, some companies, they're setting up spaces within their office environments and things like that. I imagine that's the kind of thing that we're talking about. What's the actual way that you go about doing this?
Yeah, so we basically partner with a landlord.
Mhm.
We're based in New York and Connecticut and New Jersey and Maryland. And we go into office buildings and we partner with a landlord to create what looks like an amenity space.
Mhm.
The space could be a space for co-working. It could be a space for a meeting space. It could be a space for wellness, like yoga or meditation. It could be a space for quiet time. So the first thing we do is we help organize a space for people to either meet or be alone or rest and relax, but essentially try to take care of the whole person. And then we put classes in. So classes would be like a daily meditation class or a daily fitness class. Or they could be community classes like get to know your neighbor. Or it could be professional development classes like how do you work better? Like one thing we're doing now, how do you work better when working from home, right? So what are the physical distractions and what's the physical stressors of working from home? So we put on community programs and we're bringing people together. The, what we're trying to do is make sure that throughout the course of a day, um, the person who's at work is taken care of, not just their work needs, but they're taken care of from an emotional point of view. They're taken care of from a physical point of view, from a nutritional point of view, because we know that's the best way to keep people happy and sane.
That is so cool. So just to understand, because I'm sure a lot of people are not as familiar with this world, right? But so when you say you're talking to landlords, so I'm picturing a landlord owns a building or runs a building and is leasing space to a number of different smaller businesses.
Yep.
And those smaller businesses may not have access to these employee well-being spaces. So you would go in and help the landlord create that as a way to get tenants more excited about being in that building. Is that right?
Right. So Google and Facebook and others, they can create these employee style amenities because they've got mass density of thousands of people. But
Right.
how do you do it if you're a small business? If you have 100 people, how do you kind of help bring wellness to your employees?
Yeah.
It's a really hard thing to do. How do you help them with stress relief? How do you help them with professional development? These are all really, really difficult things for employers to do on a smaller scale.
Yeah.
Our customers are anywhere from major landlords in New York City. We work with enterprises as well. So Fortune 500 firms work with us if they've got a satellite office of maybe 200 people. How are they taking care of that staff? And maybe they've got a floor in an office. How do they help take care of that staff? How do they help them meet their fitness goals, have better days, be more engaged at work, make friends? And so we work typically with landlords because they've got the scale where
Yeah.
we can come in and help everyone in a building
Yep.
have a better day. But we also work with enterprises as well.
That's really cool. Now, I'm trying to get my arms around also for a landlord, because it's kind of maybe a little more obvious, although I'm sure there's a sell job that has to happen there as well. But if I'm a company and I know that, I want to have more productive employees and things like that, so I might dedicate some space to that. But if I'm a landlord, I have to take a space that I could be leasing out to
Sure.
somebody and use it for this. What's the value prop for them? Like, how do you get them convinced that this is a good thing to do?
In a lot of buildings, there's underused space.
Mm,
So our first entry point is maybe you've got some space that doesn't look great, right? Or maybe it's hard to lease, or maybe it's on a lower floor. That's a great place for us to come in because we can make it look beautiful and engaging.
yeah.
But a lot of in a case where a landlord they're fully sold out, they'll do things like do pop-ups in lobbies,
Oh, cool.
and they'll do them. They'll maybe do it in tenant spaces, so they'll offer the service into a tenant in their space. I think landlords see the value because enterprises and HR departments are having a hard time trying to find all the services that they need to satisfy employees. And
Right.
so the landlord turns around and said, "Listen, we're not only a place provider, but we're here to provide as well for the other needs." So that could be any from a landlord's perspective. It could be anything from curating the right restaurants downstairs to bringing in better spaces.
Mm,
They see it as a part of their holistic package where they're providing security, retail, services like obviously air quality and other things, but then health and wellness to their employees as well. Just helps the employer engage with the employee, which helps the relationship between the landlord and the employer.
got it. So this is something that's attractive. So as part of the package, right? The landlord would say, "Hey, we have
Yeah.
all of these things plus these spaces." So what about for companies now? So, obviously intuitively this feels like the right thing that companies should be doing. But certainly there's got to be some data or other things that support this as well, that companies should be investing in these things. What's your thoughts there? How do companies get a return on this?
I think the returns. This is one of those spaces where the returns are really, really well known, but they're hard to create.
Yeah.
So obviously, there's employee turnover. Employee turnover can be anywhere between 15% of employee salary to three times their salary, depending on the job and the job role.
Yep.
So losing an employee is a huge cost. Attracting the right employees is also a huge challenge and cost for most businesses. And so what we're trying to do is kind of sit there first and say, we're helping you bring in the right people, right? Or the people that you want, and we're helping you keep the folks that you have.
Yeah.
The best indicators of if a person is going to stay at their job is, do they have a friend there?
Hmm.
If you have no friends at your job, you don't really have a reason to stay. But if you
Yeah.
have friends, you're really, it's very, very difficult for you to leave. And so one of the things we try to do is we try to help employees make friends when they're there. Um,
Yeah.
giving them the right and the responsibility to kind of engage with people, giving them a comfortable place where they can meet, giving them activities where they can meet around. If people are engaging and creating friendships at work, it really lowers the possibility that they're going to leave, and hence you've got a better relationship now between the employee and the employer, right? Because the
Yeah.
employer looks as like they're the provider of these services, which is great. And you get a much better relationship between the tenant and the building. So the building saying, "Hey, we've got we're creating an extra place for you." So from a better spaces point of view, we help the landlords really create that destination space. So when an employee walks in, they feel like they're being connected to the space as well as the business.
It just makes so much sense because I think about any of the jobs that I've had, right? They are all social experiences. They really and truly are. And the ones that I want to stay at the most, there's that social aspect. It's because my friends are there. You're exactly right. You're exactly right. And some people probably have a little more trouble making friends than others, right? So places like yours that can facilitate that can't be a bad thing. Really
At the end
can't
of
be.
the day, we're really social animals. We
Yeah.
like engaging with people. We like working in groups. We were made to do it. And a lot of the work today silos people into really small buckets.
Yeah.
And so if you can help them get out of those buckets and just engage with other folks, they're going to get that great emotional response that they need throughout the day, to be really engaged.
Yeah, really incredible, really incredible. Well, speaking of this whole social aspect of work, it would be pretty difficult to talk about this without mentioning the fact that we are still in the middle of this COVID crisis, lockdown, whatever you want to call it, which causes a lot of people now to be working from home. So clearly this has had to affect your business in some way that you have to pivot on this. What are you guys doing now in this crisis? It might be different than what you were doing before.
I don't know, I mean, everything.
Everything.
Um, we, we started off with just changing everything.
Yeah.
Um, when it first, when we first realized what was happening, at the beginning of March, we had a board meeting. And one of our board members is this great executive, Sandy Jaffe. And she said to us, she said, I, I just want you to think about how you can help. This is a time of crisis. Take a step back and think about how you can help.
Mm.
Don't think about you, don't think about anything else. As an executive team, think about how you can help. And that was a really clarifying message.
Yeah.
And we've been saying that to ourselves ever since this started. What are the things that we can do as an organization to help those around us? How do we help our employees? How do we help our contractors? How do we help our customers? How do we help their employees? And we just started to take that approach. We were lucky enough to have the beginnings of a digital platform when this started.
Mm.
It was something that we had used in almost a hybrid model where we had worked with it in the space. So it was an app that allowed you to book rooms or book classes, and then we were just really beginning to roll out digital classes that were pre-recorded. And so we said, listen, one of the things we can do. This is a very stressful time,
Yeah.
and the first thing we can do is help um, the employees that are on the other side by giving them stress relief classes that they can access anytime. And then we can give them wellness classes, and we can give them yoga and meditation, just things that are really focused on today's problems to help
Interesting.
them get through the day. Because
Mm.
we were feeling it, right? We were feeling the same stress as everyone else. And then we said, well, how can we help our customers? And so we go into a space and we manage a space, and we have in-person offerings, and we deal with food and beverage, and we deal with in-person classes. And we said, okay, if we're feeling this pain and we can't provide these services anymore, our customers, who are largely landlords, are probably having the same problems. They
Absolutely.
can't serve their customers. They're worried about their revenue streams. How can we help them? So we went to our landlords and we said, we're not really sure what the answer here is, but why don't you take this digital platform and give it to everybody that you have? Just give it away.
Cool.
Just take it, because if we can help you engage your customers, we can help you bridge, which is likely a very tough conversation for the last couple of months, right? Landlords
Yeah.
and tenants having really tough conversations about
Absolutely.
rent roll and reducing rent and things like that. So we said, okay, how do we help our customers have a better day? And then, we looked at our employees and we said, how do we make sure we did the best we could. We didn't want to have layoffs. We didn't want to reduce staff. We know all of our contractors and employees, they have homes, they have families, and they have people. So what are the best things we can do? So we really fought to make sure that every stakeholder that was surrounding us was taken care of. And it was challenging at times, but we got through it.
But it's such a great story, though, because you're helping the landlord to continue to deliver value to their tenants, even when that value doesn't include a physical workspace, right?
Right.
Which it's got to be really difficult because, I mean, I know that it's very easy to make the landlords the bad guys, especially during this time, but they have mortgages to pay and they've got bills to
Absolutely.
pay as well, right? So if they can find different ways to add value, that's important. Which really kind of brings me to another question. Coming out of this thing, I mean, obviously we're going to come out of this thing, but there's a lot of talk that things are going to look a lot differently, especially in these downtown kind of office environments that people now have gotten used to working from home and things of this
Yeah.
nature. I mean, and this is just, I know not maybe the view of your company, but maybe just between, your view, my view, whatever else. What do you
Just
think?
between the two of us.
Just between the two of us and everybody that's watching, but but I mean, what do you think happens? What do you think happens? Do you think that the office environment comes back, or do you think that this has a permanent effect?
Oh, I think it has a long-term effect, but I think over time, the office comes back in a large way. I think there's no returning to before, right?
Right.
There's no going to everything that was before. We've all gotten used to this type of work mode. People don't commute. Kids aren't going to school. Some people are really for a lot of reasons, they're enjoying this, right? So
Right.
maybe they're less stressed or whatever. And so not everything's going to go back to the way it was. I think offices have a very meaningful place because as as people, we're really engineered to enjoy the face to face. We're
Right.
really engineered to kind of want to be with another person and kind of all your senses involved in doing that. And so I don't think that goes away. I think what happens is in the short to medium term, you have a lot of changes with how we do it.
Right.
In New York, you're starting to see things thaw really slowly, and you're starting to see people get on the streets and walk around, and businesses are opening. And I think the distancing rules and how we take, the personal protective equipment and those types of things change our day to day.
Right.
And slowly over time, you'll see a new balance. And I think just like every other industry has been disrupted, the way, going back to when music was disrupted by digital, and then newspapers and books and
Movies,
movies
right? Yeah.
and all these things are disrupted by digital. Well, everyone else's business is going to be disrupted by digital as well, just
Right.
some later than others. And so we're seeing commercial real estate be disrupted by digital, by
Right.
Zoom, right? We can work together without having to be in the same space. And I think you're going to see a hybrid model where landlords are responsible for providing more than just the space.
Yeah, that's
We-
really, really
So
cool.
they're providing a lot of these work infrastructure components that involve safety and air quality and wellness and employee engagement and all those things that come with a place. And I think
Yeah.
landlords are going to find themselves accountable for that. And in a lot of ways, it's a new opportunity for them. Rather than just collecting rent, there's a whole stack of services that they need. These services are going to be very location specific. They're going to be very much defined by the building that you're in, the architecture of the building, the neighborhood around it, how people get there. And I think all those needs are going to be taken into consideration. And it's not going to be what it was, and it'll slowly move to something new. But it'll be a combination of how do people access that property digitally, and how do they engage with it physically.
Yeah, and I don't think it's a bad thing, to be honest with you, because any of these businesses that rely on, kind of a business model where people are naturally uncomfortable, whether that's a long commute or stuffed into spaces that are uncomfortable, whatever, they have to be thinking differently. Just like when movie theaters all went to the big wide seats with the reclining of it, they had to do things that made people want to come to see the movies, right? And
Right.
and I think businesses like office space and things like that, it's going to be the same thing. People can work from home. They need to do things that make people want to come to the office, right?
Absolutely.
And I think that's the key. So it sounds like your company's really well positioned to help people with that, which is great.
Yeah.
But really awesome stuff that you guys are doing. And I think it's right time that, companies pay more attention to these types of things and making employees comfortable. I think they're going to get more productivity out of, as a result. So really
It,
awesome.
it, it's a way that I think I think it's a way of thinking about stakeholders where we're all in this together. In a very rare moment, we really are all this together. There is no bad guy. There's
Right.
nobody who did anything wrong. It's just a virus that's kind of attacking the world. And we truly are all in this one together. And I think from our point of view, it's a really clarifying moment that we're all in this together, not only today, but tomorrow when this is passed and move on to the next thing. And so
Right.
how do we just remember that we're here to take care of each other, for if it's our customers, their customers, our employees, our contractors, our shareholders, whatever those things are. I think it's a great way to think about, not just today, but what happens afterwards.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more, and such a great way to wrap this up. So really awesome message, John. Really great model that you have. Of course, wish you the best of luck in as these things come back to normal, that you guys can continue to be at the forefront of making employees more comfortable and helping companies to do that. So before we let you go, I want to make sure that you have a chance to tell people where they can find out more information about your company if they're interested in doing that.
Check us out at betterspaces.com. And through the end of June, we've got a free trial of our app. So anyone can try out our Better Spaces Everywhere app, right at the homepage of betterspaces.com.
Awesome. That is so awesome. That's great. And I just want to also make sure that before we let the audience go, that we have a chance to thank the sponsors of our chapter. So the Tomiak Foundation and the Core Club. Without their generosity, programs like this would not be possible. So we thank them. And of course, we thank you, the audience, for joining us once again. If you like what you heard, you learned something, please give us a thumbs up, subscribe to the channel, tell your friends. The more people that know about these resources, the better that we can make these environments for employees, customers, and suppliers. So thank you for joining. And John, thanks again. It's been
Thanks,
great,
Bob.
great conversation. And we'll see everyone back here on another episode of Conscious Business Connections. Thanks.